Hey there, it's Angelique from Bold House, and I want to take a minute today to talk about the challenge of a feast or famine cycle in your coaching, consulting, or professional services business. And this is something that's more the norm than the exception for coaches and consultants and self-employed experts. In fact, well over 85% of those who book a call with our team to talk to us about working with us here at Bold House have really suffered at some point from the feast or famine cycle. Granted, sometimes folks are suffering more on the famine side than they are on the feast side, but this is something that really plagues boutique business owners and self-employed experts, but it doesn't have to. It definitely doesn't have to. The idea of your business, especially as it elevates through levels of entrepreneurial maturity, is that you're going to get to a place in your business where your business is more on cruise control and does look less and less like a roller coaster. So, why does this happen? What's really going on inside the feast or famine? And I say that because for a lot of folks, look, if you're a consultant or you're a coach or you're a professional services provider, you're obviously a very, very intelligent individual and you're a very driven individual because you've started your business and you obviously have expertise that you're bringing to your clients. So that says a lot about who you are and how you show up in life. And it also is not uh, unusual for you to already be doing a lot of things that are smart, and people are telling you to do these things in your business in order to grow, in order to scale, in order to get clients. I mean, goodness knows that everywhere you turn, somebody's giving you business advice, right, about how to grow and how to succeed. So why does this still happen? And most of all, why does it catch people by surprise? And I think that's the thing that's really interesting as we kind of step back and just study our clients and the marketplace that we serve at Bold House. Is I think the most surprising thing about the feast or famine cycle is that it really catches people by surprise. And so let's kind of talk about why this happens, why it's such a big deal, and why you really want to solve this much earlier on in your business, which we'll talk about here in a second. And then some really practical, tangible things that you should be thinking about, and more than thinking, doing, right? Because thinking about solutions is not the same as taking action on them. All right. So, why does it happen? Number one, because there's a failure to plan ahead. We are so often ruled by the tyranny of the urgent that we really forget that we are growing, we are taking action, we're putting a lot of things in place, and we get caught up. It's very easy to get caught up in this idea of I'm not ready to do X yet. I've got to focus on this over here. And so it's a bit short sighted. Being short sighted is a really easy thing to have happen to the CEO of any business. We see this even at the Fortune 500 level, that companies can become very short-sighted. We see it in politics. We see it in our own lives, right? We see it in that failure to plan ahead. So that idea of not planning ahead for the business and being wrapped up in the tyranny of the urgent is a huge reason that folks end up creating feast or famine in their business. The second reason is because most small business owners, most consultants, coaches, professional service providers do not have proven strategies or proven systems that can really just run continuously in their business. And no, I'm not talking about, funnels, but really strategic client acquisition, strategic business development in the company that's really running consistently at all times, that's been systematized and is always at work supporting you and making sure that the pipeline will not be a barren cupboard when you go there after having delivered a lot of client services and worked with a lot of clients. So that idea of having a really proven strategic approach to client acquisition and business development that is not consistent, just I'm just going to post on social media and hope if I take a content driven strategy, which does not work. We're actually going to be talking to one of our mastermind groups on Monday and Tuesday at our retreat about why content marketing is not the answer for landing high-end corporate and B2B clients. But what is that system? What is that approach? And lacking that really feeds into feast or famine. The third thing that feeds into feast or famine are dead end, once and done client engagements. When you look at the amount of time that it takes in order to land a high end B2B or corporate client, the lead time to really cultivate that relationship and bring that decision maker to the table where they're really excited to speak with you and co-create a solution with you is really the same whether it's a small engagement or a larger engagement. And yet if you're basically putting in all of that effort but hardly getting any juice for the squeeze, it creates a situation where you're really having to grind a lot faster and a lot more in your business, right? So that idea of those sort of like small bites at the apple is exhausting, and it really does create a grind in the business. And so that's a huge reason that people end up in feast or famine. And then the last piece of it is being in a situation where you are really the only person in your business that can do 90% of the client work. Maybe you have a trainer over here or an extra coach over here, or sort of kind of an assistant over here that can put slides together. But really, that 90% of the client service delivery requires your brain and your time and your presence in order to serve those clients. And so when you put all of those things together, not planning ahead for growth when you have the bandwidth to do it, not having a strategic and systematic way of doing client acquisition and business development, being in a situation where when you are winning clients, they're for short, once and done, dead end client engagements versus things that really are, a year long, year and a half long, 3 years long. We have clients closing 5-year long engagements, providing that sort of consistency over time. And then being the only person in your business that can work with your clients. Those four things add up to really be a situation where you are stuck on a melting iceberg in your business, and it's really a problem. Here's the other piece of this. I started out by talking a little bit about joking about the sort of roller coaster. And that analogy is used a lot to talk about feast or famine, right? You've got your highs, you've got your lows, tons of clients, tons of revenue coming in. And then, that client or those clients are wrapping up. And now we're in a famine. And now we've got to, hustle and go get more clients. Here's two of the really big problems with this. When your business is earning 50,000, 100,000 a year, $150,000 a year, that's where a lot of coaches, that's about where 90% of the market is in coaching and training and consulting and keynote speaking. They're hovering just above or just below that six-figure mark. When your business is, let's say, at $125,000, $150,000 a year in your business, when you're hitting feast or famine cycles, you're on the Scooby-Doo roller coaster, right? The business is only 150,000 at its high and it's, zero at its low, but the slope of those hills, are more like the Scooby-Doo roller coaster that used to be around at King's Dominion it's probably not even there anymore, Barnstormer in Disney World, right? It's like it's the little kids roller coaster, and it's got, the high is not, the high is high, it's good, and the low is low, but we're not, we're talking about, the little kids can get on this roller coaster. When your business starts approaching seven figures, $2 million, we just had a strategy session with somebody this morning about $2 million in their business. We have clients at 5 million, 10 million, et cetera. When you start moving up to those higher revenue numbers in your business, You move from the Scooby-Doo roller coaster to the King Ka roller coaster. So for those of you who know amusement parks in the United States, King Ka is one of the tallest roller coasters in all of the United States. Its top hill is over 450 feet tall, and then it's coming like straight down. I mean, it's terrifying. And I happen to know this because my twin boys who are 14 and a half, they love roller coasters and they love to drag me and my husband on every roller coaster. And in fact, this summer, we're going to be heading out to, I think it's called Cedar Point. They have more roller coasters than any park in the United States. And we're going to be getting on terrifying roller coasters that are hundreds and hundreds of feet high and just drop straight down. And I'm terrified. But the thing is, feast or famine, the bigger that your business grows. Now, we could also talk about, too much client concentration, but we'll talk about that another day. But as your business gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and those hills, those highs get bigger and bigger. But when you get into a famine, then you're gonna plummet down much farther. The thing is that as your business grows, you have more overhead that you're going to naturally carry. It's just a natural part of business. Maybe you have a little office space. Maybe you started working with a branding company or a PR firm, or you've hired a full-time assistant plus a full-time project manager that's leading your team of consultants and coaches that are working with your clients. Maybe you're making investments into paid speaking and sponsorship opportunities, or you're investing in app development, or a more robust website, or a more robust learning management system, or whatever the case may be. It's natural that as your business grows, you start investing more and more into the business. And so the problem becomes, if you don't actually figure out how to create consistency and really level out your revenue earlier on in your business, you're actually creating a terrifying drop as the business grows. And so when you're thinking about entrepreneurial maturity and you think about that business model maturity that you have in your company, you really want to think about this from the perspective of, I want to solve this stuff early, so that as I'm growing as I'm growing and growing, and building my infrastructure, I'm not creating a really steep King Ka 456-foot drop. If I, that, and don't get me wrong, lots of companies will have seasonality. Seasonality can be managed. That's not the same as feast or famine. So think about from an entrepreneurial maturity standpoint, and think about that drop in your stomach, that feeling when you're going down a roller coaster, that pit of your stomach and you lose your stomach. We don't want you losing your stomach on big drops. So that's where that consistency is going to come into play. So let's talk about a couple of solutions on this. And one, of course, is just a willingness not to be governed by the tyranny of the urgent, to say, I'm going to really think ahead. I'm going to put myself in my CEO mindset, and I'm not going to have my nose so close to the grind that I'm saying, I'm not going to worry about that right now. I'm not going to plan ahead for my growth. So the first thing is to really move your horizon and really look up and look out to the horizon as the CEO. Successful Fortune 500 CEOs are always looking 3, 4, 5 years out in their own growth trajectory. And we can learn a lot from that. Smart business is smart business at any size business. So really think about, where do you need to look ahead in your business? And are you really planning for that growth? Are you planning for that scale ahead? So the first step in that is saying, I need to make sure I learn how to proactively win clients in my business, right? That I need to know how to win clients in my business. And by the way, if you're just joining us, I'm Angelique Ruers, CEO of Bold House. If you want to follow me over on Instagram or here on LinkedIn. So first thing you want to do is really say, okay, I'm going to learn how to really win clients in my business. I need to know that I have something that's working for me. And I know that if I take enough of these actions, that I can really fill my pipeline, because the alternative to that is that you throw marketing spaghetti at the wall and you hope and pray that that marketing spaghetti gets somebody to end up reaching out to you, whether that's through word of mouth or somebody just happens to be lucky enough to see something and send business your way. So that's got to be addressed really early on in your business. And a lot of folks don't want to have to do that. But the fact is that the barrier to entry into coaching and consulting is low, but the barrier to success in these types of businesses is actually quite high. And I say that because you've got, all of maybe 6% to 8%, depending on the data you look at, of businesses that actually make it even to $1 million. And the bulk, about 90%, are stuck at about 100,000. And for most people, given the amount of energy that they're putting into their business, that's really not an equitable payoff for their energy. So you've got to figure out, listen, how am I going to know proactively how to really generate business? The second thing now is to then think about, okay, great. So I do know how to get clients for my business, but some of that is going to require my presence to do that business development. It's not, there's never going to be a time as a consultant, as a coach, as a professional service provider that you personally, as the principal, the owner, the CEO, so long as you haven't stepped out of the business into an ownership only role and you're essentially semi retired. Other than that, your presence will be required in sales conversations. And I say that from a place of um, even at the Fortune 100 level, even when you look at the Deloittes, the McKinseys, the PwCs, the Accentures of the world, there are deals even at that level that the CEO of Accenture is involved in. You look at the deals that are going down in within the NFL, and you look at the deals of, ESPN fighting, with Amazon, and, all of these deals as to who's going to get the rights to broadcast, which professional football games. Guess who's involved in those deals? The CEOs of the company. They're not the only ones, but there's really never a time that your presence won't be required or needed in business development. But what you do need to make sure you have is that you have a team of other experts that you can put in the game when you need them. And you need more people that you can put in the game than you think that you do, because not everybody that you are going to think is going to be a good, we call them bench members, right? So because it's driven by our sports, our love of sports. So think about a basketball team. They've got their 5 starters in the game. They've got, another 10 people on the bench, and they're able to put those bench members into the game when they're needed. That term is also used. I came out of the consulting world. I came out of a predecessor to Deloitte. And so we had a bench of consultants, and that bench would be pooled and put into the game. You, as an expert, need a bench of experts on your team that you can put in the game when you need them. The great thing about having a bench is that it is a profit center for your business. It's not a cost center, it's a profit center. And you always want to build profit centers for your business before you invest in more cost centers. And that gets out of whack a lot of times for small business owners. So we actually have an entire program. It's an online program. It's actually really simple to go through, that really helps coaches, consultants, and other experts understand how to effectively build their bench and know how to pay their bench the right way. Big mistake folks make is overpaying their bench by sometimes as much as 2 to 3 times what they should be paying their bench. How they manage their bench, the guidelines they have for their bench are often very out of whack. So you want to make sure you build your bench, and you want to have more people on your bench than you think that you need. Remember, you're not paying your bench when they're not in the game. So it's a profit center for your business. When they're making money for your business, you're making money. But you want to have that bench really robust of experts who can go into the game. So you want different specialties. You want trainers, you want consultants, you want maybe some speakers, some executive coaches, some project managers, consultants, et cetera, that you can put in the game, depending on what your business is and what you do for your clients. And so it's really important that you have that group of experts on your bench. You want more than you need, because they're not all going to work out. But we have a whole program that explains what that is. The next thing you want to do is you want to make sure you're selling larger engagements. You don't want these once and done burnout engagements where you go through all of this effort to finally get in front of your target audience. And then, here you are, you're meeting with these decision makers, you're having these one-on-one conversations, and they end up buying something very small and dead ended in scope from you. You want to create client relationships where these clients are working with you over 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 3 years, 5 years. And there are specific techniques that you can use that really increase your chances of really purposefully designing the client journey that way and really taking control of those conversations so that the clients know what you can do for them and that you actually have services that they can leverage for the long term. We have a free training coming up on February 15th where we're going to be talking a lot about this, specifically about how to build really large scale employee training programs, especially leadership development programs. This is one of the biggest areas that companies are spending money on right now. And really, anyone who's a keynote speaker, anyone who's a leadership or an executive coach, anyone who's a trainer, anyone who's a consultant in the people space, this is really just such a no brainer to have for your business. It's a repeatable type of an offering because training content and training programs are very repeatable. They're very scalable. It's really a must have as an expert based business today. So we're going to be spending about 2 hours really going through what does that look like in your business and how do you design programs based on exactly what the big brands today, the Accentures, the McDonald's, the Amazons, the Coca-Colas, what are they doing inside their organizations right now? How are they finding their outside trainers and experts? And what do they want in terms of the design of those programs? We're really going to be getting into that with really hot off the press insights that we are personally gathering in the days leading up to that training. And then the last piece to this is really making sure that you are charging enough in your business. And I say that because when you're not charging enough for your services, it actually undermines all of the strategies that we just covered. So we look at what is needed for you to have a great bench, for you to really be able to look forward in the business and think about where you're headed and be in that CEO role, making sure that you have the tools that you need in your business, making sure that you actually have the time as the CEO to spend thinking about your business and not just with your nose to the grind delivering client services, that you can invest in the various tools and talent that you may need to help you really systematize and scale some of the things in your business. You've got to make sure that there's a real profit margin in your business, and that's just smart business at any scale. What you don't want to be is in a situation where you grow a business that's 7 figures, multiple 7 figures, 8 figures, but your profit margin is razor thin. One of my favorite quotes in business is that the top line is for vanity and the bottom line is for sanity. So if you are a business owner that's really driven by wanting more freedom in your life, we've got to protect that profit margin. So that's a really big piece of this as well. If you want to kind of keep this conversation going, a great way to do that would be to join us for our free training on February 15th on how to build larger client engagements, particularly in the leadership development and employee training arena. That is just such a hot, you're talking about over $360 billion a year that's being spent in that area. It's one of the most leverageable, scalable, and repeatable types of offerings that your expert-based business can have. If really what resonated with you today is the fact that you don't have a bench, our bench program, it takes about all of 6 hours to go through that and has just about every template and checklist that you could possibly imagine for really growing your profit center in your business with other experts that can go in the game when you need them. So you are not the only person in your business that can be working with your clients. That is a recipe for feast or famine, because at that point, you have absolutely no time or mental energy available to continuously focus on business development. That's a huge problem. And then last but not least, if your problem is sort of number one, which is you're still really reliant on over 80% of your clients coming to you through word of mouth. So, therefore, you've entrusted the world to be your business development department versus you having control over your client acquisition and business development department. Then I'd invite you to book a call with our team and we can talk with you about how we help folks really make the transition and learn how to be really phenomenal at business development. So, those are some of the ways that we can support you in doing that. The biggest thing is to just, I want to encourage you to please fix your feast or famine cycle before you've grown your business to the level of being a king to car roller coaster. And that famine cycle then becomes a 456-foot downward drop. We don't want to see that happen to you. We want your business to be operating more consistently, predictably, on cruise control with much more evened out revenue. You're gonna have months of seasonality, maybe holidays and summer a little down, and spring and fall are way up. That's okay. Seasonality is one thing. King to car roller coaster drops, not so fun. All right, everybody, thanks so much for joining me. This has been Angelique Brewers from Bold House, and we look forward to seeing you around the house.